Hi, I'm Caroline, and I'm here to tell you about an experience I had in the emergency department of my local hospital on the 27th of August last year. The 27th of August is a very important date in my world because of a significant event that occurred on that day way back in 1999. It's always a tricky day for me to navigate, and last year it was particularly tricky because of a few other things that happened in the morning. It was like a perfect storm of events, such that by the afternoon I was struggling to manage some really big emotions by myself. So one thing led to another, and I ended up going into crisis in a public space. As a society, we're not great at handling strong emotions. So people did what people do. They called an ambulance. By the time the ambulance arrived, I was curled up on the floor, very calm and quite sleepy, because I had already cried out all of my big feelings. However, because I have very significant trauma-related issues due to past experiences within the mental health system, when the paramedics arrived, I went back into extreme crisis, and it was all pretty much downhill from there. The police soon arrived, and using their really big voices, they told me to calm down. Calm down, calm down, just relax, calm down. It wasn't very calming. Being ordered to calm down didn't help me to calm down. Consequently, I was forcibly sedated with an injection. I was then restrained and taken to the hospital. When it came time for them to transfer me from the ambulance trolley to a bed, I told the staff I needed to use the bathroom. After a bit of discussion about this problem amongst themselves, I was taken to the bathroom by two security officers who were holding on to me extremely tightly. They then escorted me back to the bed, and they told me that they needed to restrain me. And so, despite the fact that I was already sedated, and despite the fact that I had just spent several minutes alone in the bathroom without any issues, I was restrained. That is, my ankles and my wrists were strapped down to the bed, and I remained that way for about 4 hours. When the medical registrar came to see me, I told her that I had a trauma history and that being restrained was causing harm. She told me that she didn't have the authority to release me. Eventually, a mental health nurse came to see me. From the moment she began speaking, my distress began to rise. It would have been so helpful if she could have said something like, "Hi, it looks like you're having a pretty awful day. Would you like to tell me a little bit about how today has ended up being so horrible for you?" But she didn't say that. Instead, she said something like, "So what happened today?" And I didn't know where to begin. And the more I struggled to begin, the sharper her tone got. And the sharper her tone got, the more distressed I became, which made it even harder for me to try and get my words out. So she ended up telling me, "You're not helping yourself by not answering my questions." I told her repeatedly that I had a trauma history, trying to communicate the fact that she needed to soften her tone and see that I wasn't trying to be difficult. The final time I told her I had a trauma history, she responded by saying, "I'm not interested in your trauma history." And my distress grew, and my words became more scrambled, and my voice got louder. And then she told me, "You need to be quiet. There are sick elderly people around here." When she arrived at my bedside, I was quiet and half asleep. The more she spoke to me, the more distressed and consequently louder I became. Why couldn't she see that? How could she possibly not see that it was the way she was speaking to me that was escalating my distress? What does this mean? Is it a lack of training? Compassion fatigue? Burnout? How could this mental health nurse not see that her way of engaging with me was increasing my distress and thereby causing harm? Eventually she left, and I continued to be restrained. I was finally released from restraint at around 8 p.m. As the security officer was releasing me, he said, "So, are you going to behave yourself now?" And in that one brief statement, he demonstrated everything that is wrong with the way the health system deals with distressed people. He didn't see me as a person overwhelmed with distress. He saw me as a naughty child having a tantrum. To him, restraint is a punishment for bad behaviour. And as long as that attitude exists, how can anyone ever feel safe presenting to the hospital in severe emotional distress? Reach out for support, the media campaigns tell us. Why would anyone reach out when they risk getting that sort of a response? The psychiatric registrar finally saw me at around 10 p.m, and by about 10:30 p.m, I was standing outside the emergency department in the freezing cold, waiting for a taxi. And so I went home. I went home from the hospital with a whole fresh layer of trauma, which has made my already supersized muddle even more muddled. 20 years ago, on the 27th of August, 1999, a major event occurred in my world that I will never be able to forget. And on the 27th of August, 2019, another major event occurred in my world that I will never be able to forget. It is now 2020, and we are living in one of the most developed countries on the planet. How can we possibly still be treating distressed people in this way? What's going wrong? Is it a lack of training? A lack of human resources? A toxic workplace culture? How can it possibly be that in Australia in 2020, a distressed human being can be strapped to a bed and treated like a naughty child? How can this possibly be? I don't know the answer to this question, but I would like to respectfully ask you to use your position and your power to openly and honestly seek out the answers. Please ask the questions and be open to the answers, whatever they may be. I'm going to stop speaking in a moment, and you are going to continue on with your meeting. Please remember me. I am not a piece of data or a dot on a graph. I am a person. I truly believe that everyone who works in health is there because they want to help people. I also believe that all any of us can ever do is our best until we know better. Then, when we know better, we do better. Please help your staff to know better. Please provide them with the training, the support, and the ongoing professional development they need in order to know better. please invest in your staff, because when they know better, I have faith and hope that they will do better. Thank you.